Hey guys, how's it going? We asked for questions, so now we're going to answer them. If it's a little bit echoey, there's not a lot of insulation in old Tonto.
Not much.
If you don't know Tonto, it's our 1976 FJ40. We've been shuttling both trucks around to family and friends' houses, and soon we're going to be putting it all away. So it's time to start shoving stuff back into the storage unit. But we asked for questions and wanted to go through all the things you guys asked.
Yeah.
First things first. I'd like to ask a question about propane availability. We can only really comment on the Americas. Pretty darn easy. Not a big issue.
Yeah.
Once or twice, somebody didn't have the fitting. That was a smaller town. They said you need to go to the main station. But everyone filled our weird little shaped tank. We didn't want to exchange tanks because we bought a size that fit perfectly on our rear bumper. We fabricated a mount for it. It was very specific to Goose.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was always refilling it. But with an 11-pound tank, really only using it for dinner every day. Yeah. Breakfast, we'd use a little jet boil style.
Yeah, we don't really cook much
MSR reactor.
Usually. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd make coffee with that because it was so efficient with the fuel that it used that those little backpacker style spin-on ones. Any city with tourism. So just think of, from Costa Rica or Colombia, Peru, Machu Picchu type areas. Anywhere there's backpackers and people touristing.
There's usually a store that you can find those.
They're the little ones to screw on. And then almost everywhere in the Americas, our fitting was able to work. Yep. We did have that style, the newer style that had the external threads and internal threads. So, everyone was able to make it work. Once or twice we got declined and went for, 3 days once without any propane.
I think it was actually because there were riots, so we couldn't, we would have been fine if there were no roadblocks, but the roadblocks
we couldn't get to that next big town.
And
then we ran out.
Enough,
So wouldn't worry too much about it. The rest of the world, we're no longer going to have propane, so we're not going to have to worry about it, but in the Americas, pretty easy. Yeah. How's the lithium battery holding up? Are you willing to recommend them for engine bay installs? So we're doing a specific video on the whole electronic system of Dusty, but let's answer that here. We have a lithium starting battery and a 100 amp hour lithium house battery, deep cycle. They're all anti-gravity brand. Yep. We have had no issues. So to give you an idea, we've driven the new truck over 50,000 miles now, 57, something like that. We have map trails where the truck is running for 10 to 12 hours a day. The hottest being 110 degrees in Nevada.
Yeah, it gets pretty hot.
So we didn't shut it off for lunch. We just let it idle for 5 minutes and eat some food and get back to work. So it handled the extreme heat with no issues. And then up in Alaska, the coldest night was -12 Fahrenheit. So quite a bit below freezing.
And it had no issues.
No issues. And the battery management system in the starting battery and in the deep cycle house battery would alert us if there's any issues. Yeah. And neither have registered any alerts. The one that's in the house battery that's in the box would obviously stay pretty darn warm. Yeah. The inverter's next to it. There's a lot of electronics.
With us, so
the cell phone boosters in there. Yeah. There's a lot of heat in there probably to keep it warm and the insulation. The one up in the engine bay we genuinely were worried about. Thus far, no issues. I think what it did is delay allowing itself to accept a charge until it felt like it was warm enough. So it just handled all that, which is really nice. Yeah. So I would say, I'm not enough of an expert on lithium batteries as a starting capacity, application to say you should go do it. For us, I'm really impressed. Zero issues, and we'll update. If there's ever an issue, we'll let you know. Yeah. We haven't done tons of winching yet, but as we travel, we tend to do a lot of winching. And so we'll leave the truck running like we would with an AGM battery, but we'll see how that works. That's a big discharge on those. So that's sort of the status on the lithium. Curious, how far ahead do you plan your meals or food? I know it can depend on how remote you are, but would be interested to know how you plan things out and how often you're eating out versus cooking meals.
We can do, usually we're doing like a week at a time, I'd say I plan for, with extra in case, we get stuck or can't go somewhere.
We always have some dry goods and soups,
So, we'll have probably 2 weeks of food total if we were to eat just the fresh stuff, probably a week of food, I'd say, and then we can plan for longer. So, if we're going for like 2 weeks, I'll buy, for example, vegetables that will last longer, and just kind of knowing like which vegetables go bad faster, so we'll use those first. And then meats, we don't have a freezer, so just if we're going to be gone for longer periods of time, again, planning those meats. So like if you have chicken or turkey, you're going to eat those faster. And then maybe, the last part of that will be bacon and sausages, things that like will last a bit longer.
Yeah, I think on the trip we went away from eating nearly as much meat as we did, before the trip, and we substituted eggs and things like bacon as protein and meat like things because they last longer.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would say on the ratio of eating out to cooking, I would say we lean heavily on cooking all of our own meals.
Yeah.
When we're in Baja, we tend to be very remote, and so there is nowhere to eat. When we're on the trip, it varies constantly. When you're in Central America, you're constantly seeing towns, constantly seeing great roadside food. So probably every couple days we're buying something, tacos, cheap stuff, but we're almost every other day I'd say we bought something in Central. But then in like the Altiplano of Argentina, almost never. I mean, we'd go over a month without paying for food besides groceries, to eat out. So it's constantly changing.
And we don't really cook breakfast. Like we just have coffee generally in the mornings, and then for lunches we might have like lunch meat or salami, or there's just a little snack, so we're not really cooking for either of those meals, but we usually eat those in the truck.
Yeah. Next question. What months are the best to travel in Alaska? You started a bit late. Was that intentional? You also took the ferry. Do you recommend, or is driving better? So we'll break it down by pieces here. I've been to Alaska one other time on a fishing trip when I was like 16, so we don't have enough data to tell you the best time of year to go to Alaska. Yeah. We can tell you when we went, we thought it was great.
We missed all the bugs, which was perfect.
I mean, literally, I don't think we got a mosquito bite. We saw a couple once or twice, but I mean, for what people have said who went in the prime mosquito season, we're pretty happy.
Yeah.
I think if we could do anything differently, 2 weeks earlier. That 1 week earlier would have been the earliest we could have gone, because they had changed the rules allowing you, due to the pandemic, to go through Canada. I guess we did go up on the ferry, so technically we could have gone a little earlier, but we didn't want to go up until we knew we could drive home. Yeah. So about 2 weeks earlier, I'd say, because we had a lot of the favorite restaurants of locals and other people who had been there were closed.
Yeah.
So every time we're like, this is the town that's got such and such in it, it was closed. So a couple of weeks would have bought us a little more time, and then at the end, as you can see in the videos, it was getting pretty cold, so that would have been nice to be just ahead of that.
Yeah.
Not that it moves in the same exact time every year, but so intentional. It was somewhat intentional. We had a lot of work. We had to save up, and also the world wasn't quite open yet. You took the ferry. Do you recommend? Absolutely.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts, and the only thing I would do differently if I were to do it again would be to plan getting off the ferry with your vehicle so that you could experience each stop, because like some of them we didn't even get to go into the city because we didn't have enough time. Yeah. So if you planned even a day or 2 days to just get off in each stop and explore that area, get back on the ferry, go to the next stop, get off, and it would take longer, but the ferry part was actually one of my favorites.
Yeah. In fact, if we were to schedule the ferry like that, I could see leaving a month earlier, dealing with a few mosquitoes, or a month and a half earlier, and then spending a week in Juneau, and then 3 days in Ketchikan, to really give ourselves more time. So that and we highly recommend it. Yeah. And if you're going to take the ferry one way, you're probably going to drive back, and so you're going to get to do a lot of the fun driving roads you want to do anyways. Let's see. Will you be doing any hiking, snowshoeing, kayaking, biking, etc. adventures in the coming year? If so, what are your thoughts on owning strategic spots of land to store equipment for these adventures, since transporting them doesn't seem to be possible? So that's a really tough one. I mean, for us, we're always wanting to go to a new place, and we don't want to return to places a second time. And so because of that, to schedule little spots would be tough. And we've even found in Arizona, if we leave our mountain bikes and helmets at my brother's house versus my friend's house over here versus my parents', which is over there, it is really a pain. And at the moment you want to ride, that's when all of your gear is 3 hours away. Yeah. And then by the time you go get it, you feel like, well, you better ride a bunch. But then you go, you know what, we need to go do an oil change, and we should probably sell a few things from the storage unit. Yeah. And so it's really tough to have, you'd almost want a full set of all toys at every location, and then that gets a little crazy. Yeah. The other way to do it, I guess, would be if you had family somewhere that had boxes, and you're like, hey, send me the pack kayak, box number 6 or whatever. You had it all packaged and ready to go. But we do miss having all the toys, absolutely. Yeah. But the way we're traveling, we're so off-road biased, we can't fit the toys.
Yeah, and this year we really hope to put more of an emphasis, because we both love doing all of these activities. I've never snowshoed, but I think it would be really cool.
Yeah.
And so like doing all of those things and maybe
I want to go
renting
skiing if
them
where we're at
yeah.
has its ski season. I used to do that so much growing up that I want to do that again.
Yeah, because we both really miss having that physical activity, and so we want to put emphasis
really
on
the
that.
reason we didn't do more during the initial trip was cheapness. All that costs money, renting, having a guide to go do whatever. And so it was cheapness that really drove us, and we're trying to not worry about that as much and just go for it. And if we got to come home sooner and work more, so be it. What do you guys do for bear safety? We see you guys cooking inside your vehicle, storing trash inside. Have you guys had any issues? No, not at all. We get that one pretty often. And so for me, the only time I've ever seen a bear attracted to the truck versus repelled by humans has been in like national parks, places where tourism is massive and the bears really begin to look at humans and their trash as food.
Yeah.
When we've seen bears up on the Apache land within Arizona, we've seen a lot of bears. They want nothing to do with you. They're terrified. They run away. Mountain lions, same sort of thing. So for us, it hasn't been an issue anywhere that we've been. Alaska, we had bears really near the truck, but as soon as we made noise or we tried to get video of them, they ran off. And so
we did carry bear spray, so we had that with us, and we took it when we went hiking and that sort of thing. At night, just because I'm paranoid and I've watched enough YouTube videos, I would lock the doors, just, I don't know, in case a bear came up and like that would suck. He opened a door and
mug us.
Got in. I know.
Yeah, he'd come in.
But we never had any animals even attracted to the food. I think everything's pretty closed off, and I try to tie it in bags so it's not too stinky.
Yeah. And
if it is, like veggies or something that might be attractive, I'll walk off and like set it out there, because I know some animal will eat it, but farther
we don't
away
want it to
from
be
us.
near camp. Let's see. That vehicle's a beauty. Do you guys have build videos? Well, no, not on Dusty. We have build videos for Goose because we really built him more, cutting off the roof ourselves and doing all that. With Dusty, the current truck, he was built. What we've done is, build a winch tray, add the winch, go through every single bit of him to do maintenance, because he's a 30-year-old Land Cruiser.
Those videos will be coming up.
And we'll have a lot more of those videos, but it's really tough. When it comes down to it, it's still just an 80 series, so all the mechanics are going to be a diesel 80 series, which there's tons of help on I Hate Mud, so ih8mud.com. There's a forum, and almost everything you'll ever want to know about a Land Cruiser or how to maintain it is on there. And then when it comes to the box, we haven't had to fix anything on the box itself, but we redid the whole electrical system ourselves. So those type of videos, we're going to do walkthroughs to show you how we added solar, lithium, inverter, all that kind of stuff. Water system we've changed out. We've changed out almost everything
kind of
you can.
And made it unique to our needs, I guess, probably more so.
Okay, I have a new diesel overland vehicle. Would you turn off all the modern diesel emissions like DEF, or just leave it factory? Well, that's tough.
Where you want to go too.
Yes. So if you're heading into Central and South America, we've had friends who've had trouble. We've had friends who've turned back and then had that stuff removed and gone. It's illegal to remove it and operate your vehicle in the United States. And if in Europe, it's probably illegal. And so it's really a tough one. I would say if you have it, find out from other users if they're able to go off low sulfur diesel, which you'll find like in Mexico. Some places we were, if you're getting diesel out of a barrel or something, it could be pretty high sulfur. Africa, there's some great resources on Overland Wiki or on iOverland are talking about the diesel and how much sulfur it has and the quality of it. So if you're looking to go to sort of remote Africa, then I would say you definitely need to do some changes. But if you're doing mostly the US, Mexico, you might not have to do anything. And you have to be very careful because it's all illegal anytime you touch any of that stuff. So let's see. How many kilometers or miles do you travel per day? It's so different. I mean, the U.S., and the idea that, hey, Death Valley or Utah or Moab or whatever is 600 or 800 miles away, we'll just get that done in a day or two. The highways are so fast. As soon as we were in Central and South America, I mean, a 150-mile day could be the whole day driving. Stop and go, stop and go. There'd be speed bumps. Just in the middle of a highway every half mile or mile. So the second you get your big heavy old truck up to speed, it's time to slow down and hit a speed bump.
And
There's traffic.
I think we plan differently too, because like you said, in the US we know, you approximately will be going, 70 miles an hour and that'll take you this many hours, and it's going to be, unless there's an accident or something, right? You're going to get there. But in other countries we would plan much smaller mileage days, knowing that like, if we get there at 2:00, cool. Or,
Yeah.
you know, if it takes us till 6 o'clock, we have that time, but we're only taking on a shorter chunk.
And when something was definitive, like shipping your truck from Panama to Colombia, we would be there like a day or two early, because there was things that could happen that would cause a day or two delay. So you can't just budget, hey, we'll be there. It says we'll arrive at noon, the ship leaves at 2.
Yeah.
It's like, no way. You
Just
always
plan for
defer to
everything
being
not to
early.
go.
And then if that last border crossing takes a day and a half, hey, you're still okay.
Yeah.
So it's all over the place. And we were so meandering that we didn't have plans very often, except when we had to meet somebody or be somewhere at a certain time.
Yeah.
Let's see. The solar panel behind you reminded me that I've always wondered why they're necessary on overland rigs. You have an alternator to charge your house batteries. Why the expense and weight of solar? So on Goose, we did no solar. We did that. We had a larger than factory alternator, and we had a Group 31 house AGM battery. I think it was like an Odyssey. Then we had another Group 31 under the hood, and they would separate if we wanted them to. You could combine them if you wanted, and then the one had a low voltage disconnect if it got too low. It worked okay.
It worked well.
We drove a ton.
Yeah, but it worked well, wouldn't you say, for maybe the first 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, but what we were doing is over discharging.
Yeah.
The system we had didn't stop me from saying, hey man, you're going too low on an AGM. It can't handle that. So we were over discharging our AGM batteries.
And it probably would have been fine except for editing. So using laptops, because we use that quite a bit.
Charging GoPros, charging main cameras, charging the drone.
Yeah.
And then the more you travel, at least for us, the more we want to sit still. And we are not good at sitting still.
No.
So we were people who the alternator set up without solar was sort of geared to.
Kind of made sense.
But then the more we traveled, and like, I want to stay at this lake for 4 days. That's a long time for us to stay still. You couldn't make it. So that's the reason for solar now. So we went to solar. The weight is very minimal because it's those thin panels.
Yeah.
So the weight of the panels is almost nothing.
Yeah, and then the lithium batteries are so much lighter.
We
saves
saved
a lot of weight.
147 pounds off the truck just going to lithium. And then, we have solar charge controller, and then we have a DC to DC charger. So that gets the most out of the alternator, but it also gets the most out of the solar to put into our batteries. And so for us, solar now has become something we absolutely wouldn't do without.
Essential, yeah.
But, we did the whole trip without it. So if it's a budget thing or you just don't want to deal with it,
or,
that's kind of where I was at.
Yeah, just the needs, though, too. I mean, like, if we were just
not doing
basically
videos,
running the fridge and maybe charging your cell phone and occasionally a computer, not a big deal. But for us, we have higher electricity needs.
Totally. So, and those we didn't know when we left. We didn't know we were going to do the videos full time. Are you guys planning on making a book? Will you guys be attending Overland Expo next year? So, on a book, we've thought so much about it. We don't know.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments below what type of books you guys like from Overlanders. Stories of crazy times, or more of a photo album, like a calendar. I don't really know how to package our travels.
Coffee table book of coffee tables?
There you go. Perfect. We won't be at Overland Expo, I don't think, because we're going to be leaving the country, which we've been dying to do for 2 years.
Yes.
So that takes precedent, and we'll miss all of our friends at Overland Expo.
Yep.
But after doing also I've worked every single Overland Expo since it started, and there was like 400 people in Prescott Valley in like 2009. So it's kind of fun to just be able to go off and travel and maybe not have to fly back for each one of those.
Not taking a break would be great.
But we'll miss the people for sure. Let's see. Did you leave Tim up in Alaska at the North Pole and come back with someone else? It's because of my lack of beard. What are 3 top things you wish you could bring along in the truck that had to stay behind because they were too bulky or too heavy?
Mountain bikes.
Totally. Toys. I mean, if we could have just magic and have a small 4-stroke dirt bike with a plate on it.
I want a paddleboard. I want a mountain bike.
Yep.
I want a dirt bike.
Yep.
I want a one wheel. Yep. I want a endless stuff
totally.
that I wish we could have with us.
So it's just one of those things that's impossible. As soon as you start carrying all that stuff, we see the people carrying all that. They can't go a lot of places. They it's all relative, but I think, when you have the big Kamaz, commercial truck like the Dakar Rally type truck, and then you have a dirt bike on the back and mountain bikes, that's pretty cool, but you're limited on going into cities. You're not really going to go out and drive through the dunes probably because you get so heavy. But, it's possible. I just think with our setup, it's crazy to bring too much. So it's like snorkels and fins, and then we might try and do a pack raft at some point to get out on the water.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to enjoy running more, which we prefer mountain bikes because you work out without realizing you're working out.
Fun.
So, but yeah, there's so many things if we could bring it all. Any tips on buying or restoring old Land Cruisers? This person was looking at 100 series. So I think my biggest cautioning word, if you're not handy and you're not looking to do a lot of maintenance work, old Land Cruisers are not for you. They're absolutely overbuilt. I do believe they're the best built things ever made in terms of automobiles. 80 series is like top of the heap in a lot of ways, but you know, our 80 series, this current one's 30 years old. So the life cycle of a Land Cruiser is 25 to 30 years. So basically anything that hasn't been replaced up till now, it's time.
Yeah.
And all the mechanical things, you know, the axles, the ring and the pinion gears, all that's all original. But, you know, you're at the point where anything that's rubber, anything that's a seal, it's time. And so we've spent countless hours since we bought the new truck just trying to get it up to the maintenance level that Goose was. Yeah. And so
accounting for that and your time, how much time you want to spend on it, and money is a big thing, because it's not just the cost of the vehicle, it's the cost of the vehicle plus whatever maintenance needs to be done.
We've probably put $5,000 to $7,000 in parts, and we do all the work ourselves. And so no one's touched that truck except Wits End put in some bushings for us in a press. Other than that, everything we've done ourselves, and the rest of the bushings we pressed in ourselves at his shop. But and then Fit Garage did the bottom end bearings because we were up there and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have the oil pan off out in the dirt, and I was fearful. Yeah. But so that's doing it all ourselves. That's quite a bit of money. I would highly recommend getting a later model, 100 series, or I really like the 200. So nothing wrong with the 100 series. They just weren't ever something I really, really loved. Yeah. Nothing really wrong with it. That V8's fantastic. But I think an early 200 series is the way to go. I think that is a killer truck. It's so new that you'll buy it, do basic maintenance, you know, change all the fluids, and then go. And just, you could probably drive it around the world, get home, and now maybe it's in need of some more major repairs. But I think that, you know, if you're in a country where you can still buy a brand new 70 series, great. It's going to ride like a bread truck, basically. They're super cool. Yeah, so, I mean,
we love them. But
absolutely love them. But rides kind of like this truck. Yeah, I think a newer 200 series is kind of the way to go. And if you're going to get an 80 or an old 100 series, just know that, you know, you're not spending that first $5,000 on bumpers and we're back.
Battery died.
Battery died. All right. So that was really the last question. I do think that's an important one, though, because our number one question is probably, how do you afford this and the Land Cruiser one? So we'll try and do a video on how do we afford this. Basically, our answer is tons of stopping and saving, tons of saving before we left, living super cheaply, going without things like good health insurance and other things that we'd like to have, but we can't.
Or like we talked about, not having all the activities, you know, being cheap and not renting a bike or, you know, doing that kind of stuff. So.
You know, we didn't go to the Galapagos Islands. We both desperately want to go. It just wasn't affordable. Yeah. And then, you know, things like that we cut out of it. But on the Land Cruiser one, I just can't recommend enough. Just think about what you're getting into. These are awesome trucks. They will be more reliable than a comparable brand of the same year. I totally believe that. I've seen it again and again. And for military training and the other training work I've done, we use all vehicles. And so I get to see how all vehicles act and react. And that's still definitely my opinion, is that they're great, but people want top dollar for them right now. So to me, Toyotas are definitely overpriced, and it's really hard to go and buy a Toyota right now of any kind used. Yeah, absolutely. But if you don't want to dump a ton of time and money into the maintenance, go a bit newer. Yeah. Go with an old 200 series, I think, is a killer way to go. Yeah. And it's so modern that there's going to be factory support for it. And there's going to be aftermarket support for a long time into the future. Not that there's not for even something as old as a 40, but there's parts now where they go, you can't get that anymore. You have to go with something else. So yeah, I think that's about it. So those are the questions.
Yeah, thank you guys for the questions.
We are going to be sharing some news soon. We have a scheme in the works, and we are working out the details on leaving this continent. And so that's why we're trying to put things back into the storage unit, get our stuff together. We won't say anything until it's official. Until we're rolling our truck into a shipping container, we're not really going to share it publicly, because we've already had things fall through in the past. And so with the world as it is, we don't want to say something and then go, never mind, and then say somewhere else and never mind. But the location has changed 3 or 4 times, I think, total in the last 2 years. We've gone hard trying to get the truck to different locations, and they've all fallen through.
It's been a weird couple of years with COVID.
It has, right? I think for all of us. And it's been tough to be sort of in limbo, but we're close. And so we can't wait to share that with you guys. Oh, and there's some deer directly behind us.
Oh, wow. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's see, guys. Let's see if I can show you a couple of deer while you're hanging out with us. if you can see the deer just hanging out right in the middle of this little housing community here where we're visiting and stealing showers. Oh, and there's some up on the road. Got a buck up there.
Yeah.
Decent sized rack.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, awesome, guys. Thank you
for watching
and coming along, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.